Well, it's 10 o'clock. However, I noticed that two commissioners that were here a few seconds ago are no longer here. So let me find out where they are.
Sure.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and start. Mr. Rice will join us shortly. With that, I call now to order the January 22nd, 2026 Board of County Commissioners meeting. And the pledge this morning is going to be led by Commissioner Danny Tarkanian.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, the first item on the agenda is opening public comment. I'm not going to bother to read the form of restrictions. We just ask that you keep your comments in an acceptable civil manner. And then as public comment unfolds, if there is a feeling that a particular item that comes forward that the commissioners feel solicits comments back from staff or ourselves, we'll do that. So we'll go into public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker unless additional time is granted by the board chairperson. There he is. And the Board of Commissioners uses timing lights to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. That is now being controlled by Commissioner Vice Chair Nathan Tolbert. You will see a green light when you begin and then a yellow light, which indicates that you have 30 seconds. You'll also hear a beep at that time. That'll indicate you have 30 seconds, and then you should wrap up your comments. Once the light turns red, we ask you to please sit down. In addition to opening public comment will also be taken on administrative agenda items that are identified for possible action, and again, at closing public comment. If you plan to speak on a specific agenda item that is on the administrative agenda, we ask that you wait until that time, unless you have pressing business and have to you can speak on that item in opening public comment if you cannot be here later on to address that item. Public comment will not be taken on liquor board agenda items. We have one of those today. So if you'd like to make public comment on liquor board agenda items, please provide that public comment during opening public comment or closing public comment. And I'm not loud enough? Okay. Okay, so I'm often told by my wife to use my indoor voice, and so, okay, so public comment must be limited to matters that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Board of County Commissioners. Public comment must also be addressed to the chairperson and not to the members of the public, so that the board may take further action on the issues that are raised by the public. So at this time, public comment will be taken on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Board of County Commissioners. I would indicate by looking at the agenda today, also just a point of housekeeping, is that it appears to be a very light agenda by my feeling, and that so I don't know that we're going to have to take a break for lunch. I think we'll just, if it looks like we're going to be able to conclude it within that hour, then we might as well go ahead and power through it. So anyways, opening public comment. Thank you. Please state your name and your timing will begin when you...
Morning, Charles Bluth. I'm here very disappointed. I found out on Friday I was taken off the agenda And so since I spent 7 hours driving over here, I wanted to go over a few things with the commission. And some history, and this is on reference to, just got my brain, putting in the new road, Nate, in your district. My involvement with it started back in November, December of 22, and where I met 3 times with county staff, both planning and engineering, in order to make a decision prior to buying the property. And back then, I was assured all 3 meetings that in fact the plans were complete, they had been basically approved, and the funds were in place. In 2 years later, the meeting started as far as moving forward on Vista Grande, and the excuse me. Now, those meetings were held in order for me to make a decision to buy the property. And I was going to be required to donate to the county 210,000 square feet of land, which would have a market value of $3.1 million. So I wanted to make sure that the county had the money and it was in place to move forward, and that the plans had been completed. We had meetings, several other meetings after that. The circle plans that were developed do not work. And I've had a meeting with Mr. Ritchie on that and staff. The circle was going to cost $1 million in order to build and develop. In addition, what was going to happen for at least 6 or more weeks, the entry to Target was going to be closed off during the construction, which I met with Target. It would be a tremendous financial burden for them, and that particular Target store is struggling. It's only doing about $28 million. A store that size normally does 50 to 80 million. And to have the entry to their store, access to their store shut down, did not work. The radius of the circle is too small for a 70 or 80 foot long truck to get around. They have to end up going over the top of it. And it makes, that's a safety problem. And now you have, you're merging 2 different sides, 4 different directions, you're merging in that circle. It literally would not work.
Mr. Bluth,
And I brought this up.
Mr. Bluth, you have exceeded the 3 minutes, so.
Pardon me?
You have exceeded the 3 minutes, so I'm sorry, but your public comment is.
It's quite interesting. This has been underway for
Mr.
15 years.
Excuse me for a second. Can I use 3 minutes of time for Mr. Blue?
No, you cannot. You can exercise 3 minutes, but you cannot
Now,
cede it to
You've
another
had a
person.
problem for 15 years.
Mr. Bluth, I'm sorry,
you
but
had the
your
funds
public
7
comment
years
is
ago,
your
and you're
public
saying
comment is
that
terminated.
the
Thank you.
most you're going to give me is $3 million in order to lay out some information so you can make a decision of.
Thank you. That's right. Yes. I would indicate to the public it's unfortunate when these circumstances happen. However, if we allow one individual of the public to exceed 3 minutes, we have to allow all, and that would get out of hand. So, anyways, thank you for your cooperation and staying to the 3 minutes. Thank you.
Jason Gibson with the House of Gibson, Citizens Coalition for Justice, back again to remind you of the affidavit for criminal conspiracy we served on this board in this county, May 1st, and to detail the repeated molestation of public records, censorship, theft of personal property by none other than Douglas Ritchie and his partner Mark Jackson in collusion with the court clerk Sandra Moore, Michael Johnson, the black magistrate of Tahoe State Line Court, public records here in the historic courthouse, which are fugitive documents that seek to mischaracterize the true ownership of the House of Gibson in an attempt to pirate the House of Gibson, fabricating and falsifying criminal charges in order to hijack my freedom and steal our home, conspiracy and absence of lawful process. On the aforementioned dates, officers for Douglas County, including Sheriff Dan Coverly, Under Sheriff Ron Elgis, and individuals portraying themselves as peace officers, prosecuting attorneys, and their colleagues did conspire in their official capacities to deprive me of my rights, my freedom, my personal property, unlawful detention and questioning without Miranda rights, Dan Coverly, the constitutional sheriff, direct violation of Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, no sworn affidavits by any alleged victims, no genuine magistrate's order signed justifying my detention and my incarceration, no probable cause whatsoever that was valid, both alleged crimes being within these chambers and within a peaceful political rally in a yoga studio by none other than a cop, an ex-corrections officer with ties to Douglas County sheriffs. Just like Melissa Elgis with ties to Ron Elgis, who's claiming she's threatened in these chambers, even though she's married to the most heavily armed individual in all Douglas County with an army behind him, Ron Elgis, the highest paid individual in this county, scared of Jason Gibson, that Jason Gibson's going to hurt his wife. You got your schedule of fees on here today so Douglas Ritchie can continue to censor and molest the record like he has done in the last 3 months. You've got a writ of mandamus in the Supreme Court. Writ of mandamus in the Supreme Court's available on e-file. If you want more information about that details all these little things that they're doing to imprison you, to target you, to steal your property, to steal your kids, to misrepresent you. Here it is, folks.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Sensing no additional public comment, I'll bring it back to the board and we'll go into the approval of the agenda. Okay.
So I'm going to respond to what Mr. Bluth was going to finish up with, because I've been involved in this now. I think it's been when he first came back 2 years ago. Vista Grande was supposed to be built with RD1 money. There were some delays. The delays caused the project to become more expensive, and the county didn't have the money. Mr. Bluth had a very good use. I think it was a surgical center that was going to come in on his property, and he had worked out an arrangement to get the road finished with private funds. But the county had delayed so long, by the time that this vote came to fruition, the tenant moved on. So there wasn't anything. Now he has another tenant. I think it's for a senior center, which is another good use. We're not talking about bad uses here. And he's going to lose that one too if something isn't done soon. So what he's done was, he said he's worked with the landowners and he's reached an agreement with them to get the road finalized without Douglas County money. But they don't. He does not believe that the money any other additional money should be spent on the roundabout. He called it a circle. It's a roundabout, and he felt that that money could be better used building sidewalks and a walking path on the road than trying to put a roundabout in an area where Target probably wouldn't allow it anyways. I asked to have this put on the agenda over a month ago, which they're supposed to do so, but county staff, and I agree with them to an extent, that they felt that they need to have an agreement from all the owners before they could vote on it. Well, one of the owners has had problems with the lender, to be able to do this. Chuck Luth just found out about it. He's worked it out with the owner to get it done, but it's too late to get a written agreement by the time we had this meeting. So if you can understand the frustration this man has, he's putting in millions of dollars to pay for the road himself and with the other landowners, that money that the county had promised that it would spend the money on, and then to have one and now maybe two of good use tenants walk away because of delays. I can understand that. I'm going to ask our chairman to have this on the agenda for the next meeting, and hopefully we'll be able to get this thing resolved and get something done. I'm sorry it took so long to explain all that, but I felt he explained outside that he drove 7 hours to get here and he's going to drive 7 hours back. I felt that his explanation should be clearly noted on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tarkanian.
Commissioner.
We will not go into any further discussion on that because this is a working group of 5 and it's not on the agenda. So
I'd like to make a comment. That the remarks Commissioner Tarkanian just made are not facts and evidence.
Now we have a debate.
let's. We
100% factual.
Okay, we need to.
Chairman, if I may.
Yes, please.
Thanks. Doug Ritchie with the Douglas County District Attorney's Office. Public comment periods are for public comment when there's a quorum of the Board of County Commissioners and there begins to be discussion amongst the commissioners over an item over which you have jurisdiction control, particularly an item that has been before the board in the past in which a commissioner is asked be placed on the agenda in the future. It is incumbent on the board to limit their comments. I understand the need to acknowledge the comments from the public. However, the best course of conduct is to, as Commissioner Tarkanian has done, ask that the item be placed on the record, and then there can be a discussion. It is difficult. It puts the commissioners in a difficult position when there's some discussion on the comment, on the public comment, but all the other commissioners can't. They can't comment. Otherwise, you'll have a quorum. You'll have deliberation. So the best course of conduct is to acknowledge the public comment, request the item be placed on the next agenda, and then you can have the debate, as Commissioner Tarkanian said.
Okay, so the reason
Thank
I
you.
made my comments
Okay,
was because we've had
we need to
comments
go on,
after
Mr.
public
Tarkanian.
comments by commissioners to explain certain public comments. We've done that over and over again. I follow the protocol.
Yep. Okay. Very good. We're done with public comment. We're done with our comments. I will entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda, the proposed agenda.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Rice, seconded by Commissioner Hales, to approve the proposed agenda as presented. Any discussion on that? Sensing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the draft minutes of December 11th, 2025 special meeting and December 18th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners as presented. Motion? Motion by, well, then we'll reverse it. Motion by Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Rice to approve the draft minutes of December 11th special meeting and December 18th regular meeting of 2025 of the Board of County Commissioners. Any discussion, corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We have a liquor board item today, so we will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Douglas County Liquor Board. I'll read it into the record. Item number 7 for possible action, discussion to approve the packaged retail liquor and restricted gaming license for Truman Enterprise 2, Incorporated DBA 7-Eleven store number 23074AE. Boy, that's okay. 7-Eleven store number 23074E. That store is represented by owner Imran Ali Rana and has signed, and apologize if I butchered that name, and has signed a waiver of notice of hearing. 7-Eleven, the store is located at 1060 US Highway 395 North, Gardnerville, Nevada, 89410. And this is being presented by Administrative Captain John Stork. Mr. Stork.
Good morning. Captain Stork for the record. What's that? That's okay. This applicant has completed all the required paperwork and passed a background check, and the sheriff's office is not opposed to this applicant.
Very good. Any questions or discussion by the board? Okay. Sheriff Coverly has the distinction of serving on this board as well. So this is a 6-0 vote, or there's 6 available votes. Just say that. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Okay. With that being the only item, thank you very much, Mr. Stork. And appreciate it. We'll now adjourn as the Douglas County Liquor Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Did you just take a vote? Yeah, I think you took a vote without calling for.
Okay, I will then basically I have to reconvene as the Liquor Board and recess as the Bounty Commissioners to go back to that item. Apparently, I failed to ask for a motion. I failed to ask for a motion. I just announced the vote. Okay, so anyways, like I said, I'm a little rusty here on this. Okay, anyways. Okay, we're now back into we're back into session as the Douglas County Liquor Board, and I will entertain a motion to approve that application.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Hale, seconded by Sheriff Coverly, to approve the item on the agenda as stated. Now we can. Is there any discussion? I did ask for discussion. See? So, anyways, no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. And those against, it's 6-0 vote. Okay. Now I can adjourn as the Liquor Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners. Thank you, Madam Clerks, for correcting that. Okay. Now we are back in session as the Board of County Commissioners, and I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented. Is there any items that the board wishes to pull off the consent calendar? If not, then I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as approved.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent calendar items A through I as presented.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Rice, seconded by Commissioner Tarkanian, to approve the consent calendar items A through I as presented. Any further discussion? Sensing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And we'll now go into the administrative agenda. There were no items pulled, so we'll go directly into item number 11, presentations. Presentation only. Presentation regarding the Tahoe Prosperity Center Progress Report. Douglas County contributes $30,000 annually to the Tahoe Prosperity Center to help fund projects in the Tahoe Basin, including broadband, alert, wildfire cameras, small business support, affordable housing, and the annual Envision Tahoe Summit, being presented by Sarah Schmidt, the Executive Director, Tahoe. You're the new director, are you not?
Thank you and good morning.
Thank you.
I am Sarah Schmidt, the new Executive Director of the Tahoe Prosperity Center. I want to start by thanking the Board of Commissioners for giving us the opportunity to present here today. And not only giving us the chance, and especially me as a new Executive Director, to introduce myself in person, but also to share on how your funding has helped advance community economic development in Tahoe. We know that there are competing priorities when it comes to funding. I'm sure the number one question that you all have is how does this funding directly impact Douglas County? So I hope that by the end of the presentation today, this question will be answered, and if not, I'm sure you'll let me know during the question time. But we also want to make sure that sort of one of the key messages that we convey today is how Douglas County's investment to unlock additional state, federal, and private resources that directly benefit the county. And we'll share that throughout the presentation today. There's a key sort of part there in terms of ensuring that that original funding from you all, how that unlocks additional funding throughout to benefit the county. And before that, though, I do want to take a few minutes just to kind of refresh everybody on what the Tahoe Prosperity Center does and what we're currently working on, and how that directly, how we're directly working with Douglas County. All right, we're founded in 2010. Directly from a grant through the Economic Development Authority. Through that grant, really that mission was to advance a resilient economy across the basin, and our focus really is on that collaboration, community-led decision-making, and a commitment to environmental stewardship. I want to make that point here about environmental stewardship. Even though we don't do programs directly related to the environment, we do recognize that for Tahoe, our environment is our number one sort of economic resource in terms of tourism-related industries, employment. That still is the majority share of our economy up in the Tahoe Basin. And when we talk about a connected and resilient economy, we need to recognize that the Tahoe region is multi-state, multi-jurisdictional, and that our residents, workforce, goods, services cross those boundaries fluidly. And that fluid and a connected economy is also susceptible to shocks. And I'm sure that we can all relate to those shocks like the pandemic in 2019 through 2020, 21. We're still sort of now out of that phase, but also wildfire. Wildfire is can have an economic impact of up to $1 billion, and that is felt throughout the basin, through the valley, throughout parts of the state of Nevada. All right, next slide. And a little bit about us. We are a small but mighty team of 3. My colleague Derek Martin is here, and he is going to present on our work with broadband. And we are also made up of a diverse board of directors that is representative of small businesses, anchor employers, jurisdictional representatives. We formerly had Nikki Rumbach on our board, and we hope to have another representative from the Economic Vitality manager here. And at its core, we are really focused on, again, convening, coordinating, and implementing with a focus on regional actions that create that local impact. And in terms of Douglas County, that real benefit there is that priorities are aligned across our region, investments are coordinated, and relationships already exist so that we don't have to continuously reinvent the wheel and start from the beginning. And before that, I want to share a little bit on some of the economic context. I want to note here that this is in reference to the 3 zip codes that make up the Tahoe component of Douglas County.
So, Mr. Schmidt, I know that you haven't delivered here before, so we have a tendency, we have found it beneficial for us to be able to stop you during your presentation to ask questions rather than wait until the end and then come back to those slides. So
Please.
if you don't mind that process, and I believe I've been told staff has a question in regards to this. So we'll let you finish your presentation on this and then we'll go to that question. Okay?
Sure.
Thank
And
you.
actually, we received the question ahead of time, so I can already address it, and then feel free to stop and ask additional questions. This number is coming from the 2024 census, is where the data source is. We use a economic data platform called Lightcast that brings in that census data. plus does modeling and projections based on job boards and other sort of data sources. I have that report if the Board of Commissioners would like that at the end. I can hand that to you. The other thing too about the population data that we should note, the story that you don't see, and I can share the report with you, but the decline is really from that pandemic period where Tahoe saw a large influx of people coming to work remotely in the basin. And since that period, we've seen a steady decline in population as reported again with the census. So it's not to say the story there in terms of that declining population is that actually the population's returning to pre-pandemic levels. And you can see there in terms of the decrease over the next, sort of 2 years, it's very minimal. So we're seeing that trend stay steady. But again, those are the 3 zip codes compared to, it's not all of Douglas County, it's the 3 zip codes that make up, that touch Tahoe. So Glenbrook, State Line, Zephyr Cove. And then with the rest of the data, all is the same thing. It's from those same 3 zip codes. That regional employment number in the following slide, there's an interesting story there to tell about sort of the net of commuters that we have. So number of jobs compared to those who live within those 3 zip codes. The other 2 things that I think really help sort of tell our story in Tahoe is that, the average wage is actually lower than that of national earnings, but our cost of living index is higher than the rest of the state of Nevada, for example. So our cost of living, again, in those 3 zip codes is at about 120.4, whereas the rest of Nevada is at about 111.5.
I did have a question while we're there.
Sure.
Is that population decreased by 11 people or 11%?
That is that's exactly right. So it's 11% over the last 5 years.
It doesn't say percent there. It says 11, and that's why. And then it says decreased by 2 over the next 5 years. Is that 2% or is that 2 people?
Yes.
And how can you be so specific as to who are those 11 people and where are we? And
That's
who are
a
these going to be?
great-
These 2 people? You're anticipating 2 people are going to leave. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, that's an excellent point, and that is a point of clarification of the data there, that we should have that percentage there. And again, I'm happy to submit to the commissioners the report that we have, the economic report that's pulling on those. That shows that graph too of the population decrease specifically with the spike in 2019. The other thing that we know,
Total population really of 5612 is about 11% of our total county population. So, yeah, I think that's important to emphasize, is that only 11% of our county population lives in the Tahoe Basin. Yeah. Thank you.
yes, thank you, Commissioner. And the other thing too that we always like to note is that census data is census data. And so, especially when we have a lot of second homeowners who may report that as their primary residence or not, quite often it's hard to get, to verify that those numbers in terms of population are down to the 2%, not 2 individuals. But yes, this is coming from the 2024 census. All right. Any other questions? Sorry.
Just sort of a observation. The earnings is entirely different from net worth.
Yes. Yes. And there can be a lot of context there in terms of retirees. We do have a lot of people who, and I don't have that demographic data on this slide set, but it's in here. In terms of the demographics of millennials to those who are retiring, we have a higher rate of retiring than millennials who make up that demographic of the population. So that's going to make that number skewed.
But the point is still well taken for people who are trying to live and work in the Tahoe Basin, in the Tahoe Township, I should say.
Thank you. Yeah.
Commissioner Rice, did you have Oh, okay. And I would also like to point out, that says regional average, not necessarily Douglas County. We do have the largest hotel occupancies, which require daily cleaning. And so that could contribute to that number as well, because a housekeeper in those hotels would not necessarily make what the other average workers might make. So.
Thank you, Commissioner. That is correct. And actually, the next slide shows a little bit in terms of telling some of that story. And this is now more on where people live versus where people work and the number of jobs. And you can see that how different those two numbers are. So what that tells us is that we have a net commuter rate of about 4,400 individuals. So that means that people are employed coming to Douglas County, and to that particular, we're talking about, hotels and service employment. That is that picture, and so what it's telling us is that also who actually work in those 3 zip codes within Douglas County are much smaller to the jobs available. So this goes back to that affordability component of being able to live where you work.
Have you discussed in much detail with the van pool effort being made by SSTMA and Kerry Hall and others?
Yeah, we attend those board meetings as we're not part of the committee, but that is definitely transportation. And we'll touch on that a little bit too, and even when we talk about broadband. And even in the next slide, one of the things what we talk about is a collective action plan across the basin. We have the Tahoe Prosperity Playbook, which is based on years of data and research and looks holistically. We don't do all the programming within the Prosperity Playbook, but transportation is there, affordable housing is there. So those are not necessarily programs that we directly implement or manage, but make up that larger context of when we talk about a resilient and affordable economy within the
So, yeah, and that's kind of something that I wanted, especially in regards to Douglas County, of course. The cost of land and the construction standards that are required in the Tahoe Basin is extremely at a premium and very expensive. And so while we require a tremendous amount of workforce to man our properties, the available housing for those employees is lacking in that, and it's a conundrum that I don't know that we can resolve. Okay, we just recognize it, but not be able to resolve it. That's so.
Thank you, Commissioner. And one thing I was going to note as we start talking about our programming and our work directly in Douglas County is actually we do not currently have funding or programming directly related to affordable housing. It is definitely part of those, again, sort of sticky problems when we talk about very complex problems that affect our community economic development. So quite a lot of our work in that space of affordable housing right now is in helping to represent small business and business owners within those conversations and on committees with agencies such as TRPA, or even participating in working with other organizations who are directly working on that, such as St. Joseph Land Trust and other organizations. Affordable housing isn't currently in our scope of work with Douglas County. I know it said that in our bio, and previously it may have been, but currently we are not working directly in affordable housing in terms of implementing any programs. But it is one of the key challenges, and so making sure that that voice of small business is represented and anchor employers are represented is part of our role. All right. I mentioned, and I'm just going to briefly touch on that, is that we really do try to be a database focused organization, meaning our programming and our support in convening is through data, and so helping to represent some of those challenges, but making sure it's based on data, but also being clear on how good at times that data is, as we were just talking about with the census. And Tahoe has been well studied, and through that, I'm going to get into a little bit more about our Envision Tahoe program, but this is where now we start to look at that prosperity playbook and some of the spaces that we directly occupy in terms of implementing that, which is not every part of the playbook. For example, we just talked about transportation and affordable housing, but ways that we assure that sort of we're in that space and playing a convening role and representing business.
I guess I have a question here. When you say you're representing and you're in that space, I mean, I sit on the SSTMA, so Douglas is represented there. Where exactly are you representing Douglas that Douglas isn't already represented? And how are you representing Douglas?
Sure. And we would be representing very differently than you all in terms of from a jurisdictional perspective. Our representation is mostly going to come from our work, again, with small businesses, our work with broadband, our work with Alert Tahoe, to ensure that when we're talking holistically about some of these challenges, that we're bringing that diverse perspective, not from a jurisdictional perspective.
Okay, so which small businesses in Douglas do you work with?
So, and when I get into the Envision Tahoe work, I would love to talk a little bit more about the roundtables and some of the businesses that we help support in terms of facilitating that peer-to-peer learning with small businesses and what our role is. But thank you, Commissioner Hales. And that's basically the next slide, almost. These are the three programs I'm going to talk about today. Again, I noted that it sort of in our description in the agenda, it mentioned affordable housing. Our current scope with Douglas County is based on these three areas and some of the subset components of that. And I'm going to talk about these three programs. And these are the funded programs that we currently have. All right, question on what are those small businesses that we're working with in Douglas County and how do we support them? So one of the things that we do is that we facilitate something called Tahoe Inc. and roundtables once a month. They are across the basin. So we travel every month and we are in Zephyr Cove twice a year. But in terms of accessibility for Douglas County residents, I'll tell you a quick story that we had actually somebody from Task Force Analytics, which is based here in Gardnerville, travel all the way to Tahoe City to a roundtable. I will tell you, I think that shows that there is a need, there's a desire, there's an interest, and that, again, that fluidity of business owners it's sort of cross-boundary, right? So we may be facilitating something in Tahoe City, but have somebody from Douglas County travel all the way up, again, to the north part of the lake to participate in these roundtables. So that's one example of directly supporting a small business that's actually here in Gardnerville. And at those roundtables, again, the facilitation perspective is really that it's peer-to-peer learning. So what we're doing is we are facilitating that conversation with business to business. So they're sort of exploring with each other, hey, I have a challenge on, at which license should I pursue? I want to be able to do business in both El Dorado County and in Douglas County. What's the best approach? How have you sort of tackled this question before? And that peer-to-peer part, when we talk about we look at it as like the top of a funnel when we're supporting small businesses. That next layer down is then a pathway to small business development center advising. And that's something else. We currently have an MOU with University of Nevada, Reno, specifically to provide small business development center advising. For those who are not familiar with that, small business development center advising is out of the Economic Development Authority and is a federal program. It's free for any small business owner who's interested in having free advising to formalize a business, to understand how to access capital. So that Small Business Development Center advising is they have their own methodology, it's tracked, and that's one of the things that we do is working with them to ensure that Douglas County, specifically in the Tahoe Basin, have access to that Small Business Development Center advising. The other piece is we're piloting what we're calling a business accelerator this year. So what that does is takes those individuals who are interested, want to fast track their sort of business accelerator program of, hey, I have an idea. By the end of it, I want to have a business plan. I want to have a bank account. I want to be registered in the county I need to be registered in. And using Small Business Center advising, using other mentors within the small business and business community up in Tahoe to do that accelerator sort of advising to get those small businesses formalized and with a business plan, with access to capital by the end. So we're going to pilot that this year, and hopefully with that success, we can take it to other parts of the lake. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and this is, I think there was particular interest here, especially with Carson Valley Chamber, is to do some maybe learning on how we've facilitated business walks. We did our first in 2024. What this helps us do when we talk about that data and that the majority of our data is coming from the census, these business walks help sort of bring that qualitative data to then help create a fuller picture of what we're talking about when we talk about the economic data within the basin. In 2024, that regional, we, again, facilitated it here. Actually, Nikki Rodenbach was one of our walkers and helped to do some of the interviewing with others from Douglas County. And we literally canvass business by business and collect data in terms of what are those challenges, what are their potential solutions. This goes back to really helping to drive community-based decision-making too. You can see the top challenges there that were identified from that 2024 business walk. Not surprising, housing being up at the top. Next was around infrastructure, so that's the transportation component, that's broadband, workforce training, recruitment, retention. Retention is a big piece, and then that piece on tourism dependence. And then we're currently planning for our 2026 business walks in October, which again will directly collaborate and be supporting and collecting data from Douglas County businesses. And then Envision Tahoe, that's our annual venture summit. We usually have about 160 participants, and that is it's a really great mixture of both state, local government, and then also small business. And actually it tends to be the role that people really appreciate is connecting those two, where we're bringing in representation from both and they have a chance to network and meet. This year, we're going to be hosting it on May 7th in Douglas County at the Tahoe Blue Event Center, so right there at State Line. And we're coordinating this year with the Tahoe Chamber and the Go Local Expo, so that we'll talk about the economy and then participants will go and directly experience the economy at the Go Local Expo. This is the other role we play in terms of connecting, convening, making sure that we are coordinating efforts with other entities. The Western Nevada Development District obviously covers Douglas County. We are a member of the Development District, and this year we hosted actually the board meeting at our offices in Incline Village, and we're able to really demonstrate and give the rest of the board a flavor and an understanding of some of the unique challenges that we face up in the basin in terms of business, tourism. We were able to actually visit Calneva, as it's under development. That's a very unique example where you have now a business and a hotel straddling two states. And what does that look like in terms of, again, fluidity of commerce, building, transportation? And then we'll also be participating on the committee for WNDD as they complete the 2026 to 2030 comprehensive economic development strategy. And that is something that, if you're unfamiliar with it, is critical. It's one of the pathways to receiving grants from the Economic Development Authority. Tahoe is not actually considered a region, so we straddle multiple regions, and therefore, sort of our participation in those types of committees and developing those strategies to help, again, be a voice for Douglas County businesses that are part of the Tahoe Basin. So we're talking about sort of where does that voice come in? How are we representing? Where are we representing? That's one of the opportunities. I already mentioned the Small Business Development Center and our MOU with Nevada SBDC, and that's out of the University of Nevada, Reno. You all actually already have a MOU with, as a county, with SBDC Nevada. So this really builds off of that to help ensure that, again, small businesses in those 3 zip codes have access to that advising. All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. This is now Alert Tahoe, and probably some of the questions we often get is, how does this relate to economic development? As I mentioned at the top, wildfire, for various reasons, directly impacts our economic resilience in terms of shocks, both to community safety but also to businesses. And then the other component being that, again, that shock impacts our ability to sort of continue that economy around tourism, right? So wildfire has multiple effects when we talk about, and you all know just as well as I do, the impacts that the wildfire can create in our region. I wanted to highlight that this year we raised over $75,000 of private funding for a new camera on the West Shore. You may be saying, well, why? How does that affect Douglas County? Well, that view shed, and you can see it right there, those cameras provide a direct view shed into Douglas County. Those cameras are, and if you're unfamiliar with Alert Wildfire and the program out of UNR, those cameras use AI and other types of software for early detection and early warning of wildfires. So everything from smoke, change in heat, and so it's catching the whole concept of having that system of cameras up there is for, again, early warning and ultimately prevention of wildfires.
So this is done in conjunction with UNR?
Correct.
And maybe some other entities?
So our role within the Alert Tahoe, we actually were one of the first partners with UNR. We're really the fundraising arm of it. So UNR and the seismology department, they're the ones that originated with Alert Wildfire, and we support them. So for example, the $75,000 that was raised to place a camera on the West Shore this year, that is all from us working with community members, homeowners associations, and then we work with UNR, play that convener with the community, both for the funding and also where that camera should be placed. We help cross that bridge with the U.S. Forest Service to get permits. So our role is not in, or not
Technical?
We're not directly facilitating or sort of monitoring those cameras. We're really playing that community convener role. And there are others. That was part of your question. So one of the things too with those cameras, we often work with UNR to help identify other sponsors like Liberty. Utilities is one, and Nevada is another one in terms of maintenance costs or where those cameras are going to be placed.
So you fundraise with those folks, or no? Those
No,
folks
we
are part of
fundraise
UNR's
independent-
effort?
That's right. So what Liberty or other utilities will often do is they will promise to support maintenance fees. That $75,000 pays for the camera, the installation, the initial software, and then we work with UNR to find those sponsors to help with the maintenance.
So are these mostly individual donors, government donors?
That $75,000 right there all came from homeowners on the California side on the West Shore. Yeah, and actually that $75,000 actually will pay for 2 cameras, which is really exciting. So we already installed, and was also part of the role that we helped play is, again, with that convening, getting that initial camera installed this last summer, which was really exciting. And then we'll work to help find and place a second camera near a similar location into spring, into summer this year. And I think that's the real sort of important there and there's multiple. The other thing I should qualify is that alert camera wildfire is now, it started here in Tahoe. It's now Utah, the rest of Nevada, and Australia. So that network is huge. We only play that small part in the basin that we sort of just talked about. And I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Derek Martin, to talk about our Connected Tahoe work.
Thank you for having me again, everybody. I'm Derek Martin. I'm the Technical Director at the Tahoe Prosperity Center. I've been here for over 3 years now, and delighted to have the pleasure to talk about our Connected Tahoe program, which wasn't initially, when I came to the Tahoe Prosperity Center, exactly what I thought I'd be working on broadband, but it's interesting sitting here today, how it weaves its way into all of our conversations, whether it's the transportation programs needing what a lot of our counties and cities are developing intelligent transportation systems, studying where that works, where our speeds are low, and we'll see some maps later, facilitating those conversations. One of the main things that we do for you is make sure that our federal funds come here. So we've facilitated grants from the USDA and made sure that those grants over $200,000 come directly to Nevada, and we split that between our 2 counties. So making sure that those funds come here, and then we have a voice advocating for the county in that conversation. When the federal government decides to release a large amount of broadband funds, that's something that we were already previously tapped in to develop in and use that resource to kind of parlay with the rest of our economic development initiatives. So that's where the expanding comes in, when it goes with the transportation systems. When we look at our alert wildfire cameras, and they're getting stronger and better, so a camera on the west shore of California can now see all of the shore of Nevada, and we can then realize those benefits through that increased connectivity.
Can I? To be honest, I'm trying really hard to make sure I understand what value Douglas is getting. So 2 months from now, when we do our budget, I know whether I want to support money. So I apologize for my questions, but I really want to understand. So when you say you facilitated grants, I don't know what that means. Did you write grants? Did you secure grant money that is being spent in Douglas County?
All 3 of those things for all the federal levels. So over the course of the last 3 years, we've secured over $800,000 of federal broadband specific funding that are penciled to be used for different types of applications that directly impact community members. This is not fiber in the ground. This is not putting a line to somebody's house. This is making sure that people stay connected and that they're able to access the funds. A lot of when companies come here to do business, they're not laying fiber in a single county, right? They're connecting 2 major cities, a battery loop to a tech center. And when they want to do business up here and they see it's $11 a pole, they want to make sure that they have previously done plans and coordinated opportunities to lower those costs. And without doing that, we've shown that we've lagged behind that development and that we're not well suited for competitive development connecting us to all these resources. And as I-80 flows through, we realize there's only so many ways to kind of cross that geographic border, so we need to use us to lower those costs. So for the amount of money that Douglas County invests, we have over $800,000 in broadband money that we write the grants for. We're the PI, we then deploy those. If we look at, so we run this map, which is making sure that a lot of our jurisdictions and our mapping, it's very difficult to go all to a county line. When an ISP looks at the profit for building broadband to a home, it's typically not to build it all the way to the end of a county line. And this is true in all 5 counties that touch Tahoe. So they don't have mapping, they don't have speed tests, and we can't challenge any of the federal funds that get spent by those large ISPs without having, one, the maps, and two, a lot of times, weirdly enough, a nonprofit has to back our local citizens to challenge what Comcast says is supported. So if a billionaire comes in and puts supported network to their house, which we often see, it's now covered and there's internet there, but none of the citizens can access it, and we don't have more ISPs. So we increase that competition by making it an attractive place for ISPs to do business. On the next slide, you can kind of see on some of our mapping as well. In addition to that, there are still areas in Douglas County that are completely unserved and have no ability to connect to them at this point. So of that $800,000 in federal funding that we've mentioned, we run what's called the Tahoe Regional Broadband Consortium, really making sure that we facilitate and catalyze the development that can connect areas like Reno and Carson City to Sacramento and Fresno, where these major broadband lines are coming in from the coast under the Pacific. And I never thought I'd know this much about fiber and where they would want to lay this, but when I get companies that call me to do these connections, they're shocked at how it takes to really make this last bit of connection through Tahoe. And having, we mentioned the Tahoe Regional, Tahoe Regional Protection Agency, a federal organization, really has some different barriers people have to go through. So without having somebody to coordinate and who's previously navigated those to really show the ISPs what's happening, we continue to stay unconnected and we continue to not access federal funds.
So that's internet service provider.
I'm sorry, yes, internet service providers. Too much broadband for me.
And have you actually increased broadband in Douglas County?
Yes, our main goal with the program is 98% connectivity. So there's been a lot of federal changes. One, many people may notice is with Starlink, we hear all the time, or fixed wireless access, FWA, you'll see. So a lot of times federal organizations will say, you're all covered, you're good, you could all get Starlink. And that's just not the case, and it doesn't do the same thing as fiber, nor is it affordable to everybody. So having maps like these and having us be the voice to go to a neighborhood, whether it's for a camera to fundraise for or for broadband to say, hey, we need a federal challenge, and we've done this successfully in the past. Let's bring the millions of dollars needed for a broadband system into a housing system. You know, that's where our housing work overlays. All of this is a way that our barriers are set up that if we don't have community institutions that can help us lobby for those federal funds and show in the month time frame that the federal government releases all this information to then qualify to apply for BEAD dollars. I don't know if you've heard for those. It's a broadband equity access and deployment strategy. It's 60 billion federal dollars. If people aren't set up ahead of time to do this, we continue to be left out. So having us work in this space for over 10 years and pulling in millions of federal dollars over the years keeps us well set up to be competitive and to be able to access these federal funds. And that's where that $800,000 comes from in the 3 years that I've been working, is pulling money from the USTA to the county and pulling money from the federal government through other state institutions to the county to really make sure that we are well set up and previously set up to access more funds and deploy for different internet service providers.
So how much of that $800K has been spent in Douglas?
At absolute minimum, $100,000. That would be half of the USDA money. And then we use another $600,000 that we have that's coordinated through the California Public Utilities to do things like the mapping, put up the coordinated services, hold facilitating meetings. And a lot of this funding is reimbursement based. So if we don't have funding from the county, we can't wait the 3 years for the money to come in to support a technical expert to handle a lot of this work.
I feel like I finally got something. You're telling me that since 2023, you have spent over $100,000 on behalf of Douglas residents in the Tahoe Township to get broadband?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I've still always had I'm trying to figure out the word, but I've always wondered about where the federal government and the state government gets involved in private business. And my attitude is that private business should be responsible for bringing internet service into the community. So I'm always troubled by that use of federal funds, but that's a federal decision that is well beyond my jurisdiction. So it just astounds me that we are not allowing private enterprise to take care of this issue. So I'll get off my soapbox.
I'll just say I agree with you. The idea is that private enterprise should take care of this. It turns out with the difficulty in Tahoe, digging in granite, they've chosen not to over the past decade or so, and we've been left behind. And without organizations like a nonprofit to support our community members in addition to our federal government, we haven't had the resources to stay competitive, to fill out these applications on time. When people ask, where are the GIS coordinates for every speed test, every household to show this challenge? It's very in-depth, more in-depth than I ever thought it would be. And without somebody previously navigating it and expertly and quickly navigating it in the month time frame is often required for federal funding, it turns out that the people are left unserved, and that's exactly what this map shows, that every area in dark blue here has 100% no access to it.
It's also not lost on me that the technology is advancing at such a rapid rate, and especially through satellite use to allow that process, is probably going to take place in advance of fiber in the ground.
New federal regulations
And
like
so
that.
we're investing a lot of money in fiber in the ground. That's going to be obsolete in a very, very short period of time. So just doesn't seem like a wise spending of money to me. But that's,
We do know
once
fiber
again,
in
I'll
the
get off
ground.
my soapbox.
And I do agree with that. I do wireless pilots. We have areas all over with state parks that really, it's not feasible to put fiber in the ground. And we've had our community members speak that and say that in our business walks. We hear that. And I agree with you. Tahoe has proven with ISPs not doing it over the years, it's not worth the money. So they don't. So how do we utilize that? How do we work with the Forest Service to make sure when people want to use a transportation system, a shuttle that's set up, a cross lake ferry that we all agree that we need for housing and transportation, when they use it, how do they make sure there's Wi-Fi on their phones when it's there? When we all show up on the 4th of July, how do these new systems work? And that's why we have different systems that don't use fiber in the ground, that use different competitors like Sky Fiber Wireless, a Douglas County-based company that I use and I piloted an event with, and we use those events to make sure that we are staying ahead of this because it is growing too fast that fiber in the ground isn't cutting in. It's to our anchor institutions. If we don't use things like county-owned and community-owned wireless to service difficult areas like the lake, they continue to have no service. I'm sure that many people who have visited there have experienced. We continue to have fluctuation problems on holidays.
So one of the things you mentioned was that because you're local, you can help direct the outside service providers. So are you actually walking things through TRPA, and are you actually dealing with Douglas County on these projects? Because I know, I'm pretty sure Douglas County has a no aerial policy now, so everything has to be underground when you come into Douglas County. So are you actually helping them navigate that? And the other question is, when you talk about fiber, we have a local company that's done a lot of work in the entire Northern Nevada region where they go out and get grant funding to install their fiber. So are you working with the local guy as well, or how is that specific function working?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I'm agnostic to the provider because I believe more providers is better and it gives the community members more choice. I love and I often do work with local providers, and one of our main roles is one, helping them in sharing the mapping so they have speed tests. So we facilitate and we spend some of the funds of that $100,000 we spent in the county buy speed tests from every house that are held proprietarily, and their ISPs are allowed to access that for their funds. We also provide letters of recommendation, and we make sure that all of that funding goes through that. And we're directly help them with their grant applications because more as ISPs is better. And again, our main goal is 98% connectivity, just so 98% of the people can access the internet, whether it's senior citizens in their homes trying to make sure a button works when they hit it, or somebody trying to get high speed and having a remote worker in a business. They're one and the same to us. I think I missed part of the question. May you please?
Yeah, the actual walking it through. I mean, so you helping the permit process and getting these things done through TRPA specifically and Douglas County?
Yes, I
our
make the
unique
exact connections to the right
requirements?
person at TRPA. We also do the TRBC, Tahoe Regional Broadband Consortium meetings. Every single month we hold these. And that's where somebody like the TRPA really organizes with somebody like OSIT, the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology through Nevada, and where they get to chat and realize that, hey, you guys, we have a dig once policy that we were instrumental in implementing in Douglas County. How do we use the conduit that's in the ground to make sure the fiber coming from Fresno makes it all the way to Reno with this portion in Douglas County? We'll make those connections in that monthly meeting, but then I typically leave it from there. Thank you for the rephrase. Back to you. Thank you very much.
And I'm just going to sort of wrap us up and close this out. And just in terms of, as we look ahead specifically for Douglas County, is continuing to facilitate those monthly roundtables, but specific to Douglas County in Zephyr Cove at Untethered. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that business space, but they're fantastic hosts to us, and that's on April 14th and November 10th. And obviously, we have those monthly, and again, as I mentioned, those businesses from Douglas County, we do quite often see that they travel to other parts of the lake to participate.
Do you track where the businesses come from?
We do not specifically ask them, where do you live? When they sign up, they do tell us where their business is. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're residents. So that's also can be different. So for example, a participant is a hairdresser as I know, in Zephyr Cove. They come to that round table. Their business is right there at Round Hill. They actually are residents of South Lake Tahoe. Yeah,
But their business is in Douglas.
correct. So we don't ask their residency. It's just not, we don't collect that type of data.
So
Yeah.
can you tell us how many Douglas businesses have received or participated in your programs?
Throughout the year, like throughout the years, not because this is now multiple years, I do not have that specific number on hand. We can go back and we can look through again, and the way that we do it is through a registration process. The thing I'll note is that quite often people will register to come. We get some people who don't come who register and other people who show up. And so we just have whatever they sign in as. But I can pull the number for you. I do not have that number.
I would
specific.
appreciate it
Yeah.
if you would get me that number.
We can do that.
For last year, I mean.
For a year.
Doesn't,
Well,
a
and I
few
can-
years maybe.
Yeah, and I can tell you at least anecdotally, it's at least around probably between 10 and 15 participants. And that's, I know anecdotally from participating in each one of those and it being monthly, and we roughly get, again, about 10 participants per roundtable. So that's an anecdotal number, but I can look through the registration.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We talked about the roundtables coming up at Zephyr Cove. The other piece too is expanding that SBDC advising specifically here in Douglas County to our Tahoe region through that MOU, and that includes bilingual support. And then on May 7th, I mentioned too, and we'd love to invite all of you to participate. We'd love to have representation, which we plan to have, but directly from the jurisdiction of Douglas County at our Envision Tahoe Venture Summit that we're hosting at State Line. And then, as I mentioned, we are installing a second camera this year in 2026. Again, that view shed is directly benefiting Douglas County. And even with funding coming from the other part of the lake. And then the other piece is the 2026 annual business walks. And again, that will be directly in Douglas County as part of that. And we'll be looking to coordinate with the Vitality team here in terms of both identifying businesses that want to participate, which is part of our role, but also helping us actually do the data collection. And then we already talked about some of that continued broadband coordination and some of the leads and conversation even with some of that smart transportation that we've been talking about, which includes Wi-Fi and other forms of innovative connection, which is, I know, part of the conversation we just had. And with that, I'll just, again, thank you all for your time. I know we got a big chunk of time on the agenda today, which I really do appreciate. I may or may not have addressed that question of how specifically Douglas County and, you know, the maybe as specific the numbers. So happy to provide that as follow-up, but address any other further questions. We know that you all have to make difficult choices when it comes to funding priorities, and we greatly appreciate the continued support and funding from Douglas County to represent the small businesses and communities on that part of the county. So
Thank
appreciate
you. I
it.
believe our county manager had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Jennifer Davidson, County Manager, for the record. Not a question, a comment regarding the business walk. And I do think relevant to the commission's consideration for the budget questions that we have moving forward. I think it's important for me to share that our Economic Vitality Manager, Ms. Rudelbach, very much enjoyed participating with your team on the business walks. Last time she reported back that she found it helpful that you facilitated many of those conversations. Some businesses are at times reluctant to share directly with county staff their concerns, and building those relationships, it was very helpful. She also said that she spoke to dozens of businesses. I think it would be helpful for the commission to know exactly how many businesses were contacted in that last walk. Ms. Rudelbach is no longer with our organization, so I don't have that number on hand. If you don't mind sharing that, that would be great.
Sure, and I know that including a survey component, we had over 500 participants. I don't have the specific number for the number of Douglas County businesses. I'm sorry I didn't come prepared with that today, but that's, again, an easy follow-up question. But I do know that it's, because I have that number on the top of my head, over 500 in terms of the data collected, 500 businesses, but that's the whole entire basin and including an online survey component.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions or comments? Okay.
So I'm just going to ask the question because it's coming to us from constituents. So if about an eighth of the Tahoe Basin sits in Douglas County, and from what you can find of receipt data, Douglas County is somewhere around 10% of the basin of Lake Tahoe's entire economy, and with the majority of it being in California. And given that we are providing about 30,000, Washoe County is about 47, Carson, who doesn't really have much, doesn't contribute any, South Shore is pulled out. And since we already fund a lot of other regional organizations that you've mentioned that you work with, like WNDD, the SBA, the Chamber, what evidence can you provide that if we continue the 30,000 annual, that you're delivering measurable benefits to the Douglas County taxpayers? So basically, how do I tell the constituent when they ask me, why are you doing this, that I can point to that says, this is exactly why we're contributing what we're contributing, giving we're not, a fair share. A lot of people like to, look at, well, we're contributing, but they're not, they're benefiting from our money. So how do I answer that question and feel good about it to our constituents?
Thank you for the question. And maybe just on that contribution component, one of the things I was hoping to communicate today is how that 30,000 investment in Tahoe Prosperity Center from Douglas County has helped open additional funding resources that benefit Douglas County. So an example of that, and again, we do receive funding from Placer County, the city, and El Dorado County. You're correct. We no longer, El Dorado, I think especially, they pulled their funding from most nonprofits this year and actually lost their economic development team in totality in terms of a county. The city of Southlake, we still have a great relationship with them, and we're in continued conversation with them to help them with their economic strategy. We don't currently have funding from them, but that is something we plan to do. I think one of the things, again, I was hoping to communicate is that 30,000, we've been able to create a multiplier effect. And so as an example, that 30,000 helped facilitate that $76,000 investment from California residents that directly benefit Douglas County in terms of wildfire prevention and safety. So while that camera may not sit in Douglas County, which Douglas County is part of, there are cameras in Douglas County, but I just wanted to share that this year, that fundraising effort and how that affects or sort of can help support Douglas County. The other piece there in terms of, again, helping to, again, create that multiplier effect of what that $30,000 helps in return. Even things like this year with our summit being in State Line, helping to really demonstrate and emphasize and help sort of those small businesses and businesses within Douglas County right there, really be able to showcase, create that relationship. That's, in my mind, a direct a benefit to Douglas County. Others may not see it that way, but I see that as a direct benefit. I think the other piece in terms of what we talked about broadband is being able to really, again, access additional resources that then help bring in benefits to those connectivity related issues here in Douglas County.
Thank you. I know
I have
Commissioner Tarkanian.
I'm sorry. I have a similar question, but it's sort of in a different way.
Sure.
Most of the things you do, I would argue, deal with increasing tourism, or at least helping more tourists come to the area. I mean, if the businesses are doing better, more offers, the broadband's better, you have tourists more that want to go there. So the $30,000 that we give out of the general fund, it seems to me we could be allocating that from the funds that go to promote tourism, like from we give millions and millions of dollars to TDVA. Have you tried to just meet with TDVA to see if you can get resources from them?
Sort of related, but we actually received a small grant from the American Championship Golf Tournament, very small, to help support Tahoeing. But outside of that, our focus is not directly within tourism. I think one of the things.
Listen, I understand all that. I don't want
Sure.
to waste a lot of time. We've been here for almost an hour on
Yeah.
this. We're trying to find a way that we can use more general funds for really needed projects down here in the valley, roads. I mean, I don't need to go through all of them. Your work does I would think encourage tourism, or at least make more tourists want to come up to the area. And I just thought maybe between now and the time we meet in our budgets, that you go and meet with TDVA and see if maybe you can get them to offset $30,000 to what we provide them is very nominal, while we could use this other money to something else.
I think that's a great conversation to have, and we do have a relationship with them. I think one of the things we really also look at is that obviously small business is an indicator of a healthy economy, and that is not necessarily a focus of a destination management organization like theirs. And for us, yes, it's obviously tourism is still our number one sort of sector, but that is one of the things when we talk about sort of helping to create diversifying our economy to help with those shocks and other things. I agree. I think, those relationships and collaboration are critical, and that's one of the things I think we do focus on in terms of building those relationships. So I would welcome a conversation with them. I think it's a great idea.
If I may, Commissioner Tarkanian makes a great point. So I think you should not welcome the conversations, but start the conversations.
Thank you, Commissioner Hales.
Commissioner Rice, did you have a comment
Yeah,
also?
I think that one of the things that we don't need to overlook is the camera system. This is something that is of great importance to those that live at the lake, and we depend on early detection and putting these things out before they turn into tamarack and before they turn into other great, looking at what happened to Pasadena and Altadena and the millions of dollars worth of homes along the beach, which, by the way, will probably never get rebuilt. And so I don't want to go there. Anyway, I think that one of the things I would like you to tag on to is their movement to try to get a firefighting helicopter at Lake Tahoe. And that's something that I think you could have a good involvement in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. So we're going to wrap this up, but I want to echo some of the things my fellow commissioners have indicated. And it apparently we've started our budget deliberations already. Okay, we're already taking a look at that. Okay, which means we used to chase dollars. Now we're chasing what I call precious pennies. Okay, every jurisdiction in Nevada, every jurisdiction in the country is chasing precious pennies now, not just dollars. And I guess a lot of concerns that I think have been articulated by our board is that there are a lot of overlapping activities by a variety of basin organizations. A lot of overlapping activities by a variety of basin organizations. And so that's where we're down to, is where do we prioritize our dollars? And that's going to have to be a discussion we're going to go into, not only with you folks, but a lot of other folks as we move down this process to May 28th, I think is when we have our final meeting. So anyways, thank you so much for your presentation today. And I know it's difficult for you. This is the first time, and as a new executive director, so congratulations and welcome. And I hope you didn't, we didn't unload on you too much.
No, I really do appreciate it. And again, we recognize that there's always priorities, and we also really do appreciate candor, because I think that is a gift. And so thank you again for your time, and thank you for consideration and, again, recommendations as we move forward. So thank you.
So, Ms. Bergens, you're up next, and I'm just questioning, I'm wondering if we should take a 5-minute break and come back at 11:30 and then go into yours, okay? Hopefully we can get through this without taking a lunch today. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Okay, we're going to get started again. Commissioner Tolbert, oh, yeah, there he is. Can't miss him, right? Haas, Big Haas? I call him Big Haas, so.
Hey, little Joe.
Little, yeah, okay, that's fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, fair enough. Okay. Okay, so we'll go into item 12 for presentation only. Presentation of the 2026 election precinct maps for Douglas County by the Douglas County Clerk Treasurer, Miss Amy Bergens, Clerk Treasurer.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Board of Commissioners. I promise you this will not be an hour long. So with that, I know that I have presented this publicly to a lot of members of the community, and I've also sat down with any of the commissioners or members of the public that wanted to discuss it. So I think it's been out there. We do have it on our website, which I'll talk about at the end. So I'll speed through this a little bit. I just want to give some context first. So the precincts are overseen by NRS, Nevada Revised Statutes, in 293 sections 205 through 210. It is clearly a clerk function as far as defining the lines for precincts. When the clerk has decided what the lines are going to be, we submit them to the Secretary of State and the LCB, the Legislative Council Bureau, for a legal compliance review. As a matter of fact, LCB just is basically wants a copy of them to have on hand. The Secretary of State has already reviewed these. I did it in conjunction with the Secretary of State's office. So they have already gone through this check. This is not a function of the Board of County Commissioners. Today I am here for information only and for a clean record for the future. And let me go into a little bit of context. I can't find how the precincts were created. I can't find when the precincts were created because it was a function of the clerk. We did it and moved on. The only thing that I could get from LCB when I reached out to them was a map from 1989 and a map from 1995 that they had historically. But it didn't even show the correct movement or the current maps and when that change was made. So I wanted to bring this before the Board of Commissioners, not only for transparency for the public, for information, but also now the map will be historically a part of the clerk record moving forward. So with that, what is a precinct? A precinct is defined in Nevada law as the smallest voting area within a political zone. There is a distinct difference between a precinct and a district. I am not redistricting Douglas County. I am re-precincting. A district determines who you vote for, who represents you. A precinct does not. This does not change who you vote for, who you will see on your ballot in the 2026 election cycle. Before 2019, precincts determined your polling location. Most of us are old enough to remember going to either the fire station or even your neighbor's garage because that was your precinct location. But in 2019, Nevada switched to vote centers. AB 345 in 2019 introduced the idea of statewide vote centers. And since then, we have moved forward with having vote centers in Douglas County where any Douglas County registered voter can go to any Douglas County vote center and vote during early voting or on election day. And we also now have mail ballots, which means you don't even have to leave the privacy of your home to vote. So elections have changed, and therefore precincts have become very administrative. They are used internally by my office to determine the ballot that a voter receives, what district you live in as far as GIDs. We have a ton of GIDs in Douglas County. So they are very administrative at this point. So primarily the use for precincts is internal ballot creation and assignment. The law still states that we release election results per per precinct, and precincts are no longer tied to the polling place location. Now, if you remember, in 2021, we, across the country, we redistrict to include Douglas County. We do that every year that ends with a 1. We look at our districts and determine if we need to redistrict. So the census is done in years that end with 0. So it will be done again in 2030. And then in 2031, we will take a look at our districts and determine if we need to move forward with redistricting, which we will. Douglas County has such a population growth every 10 years that just in order to keep the districts fair, we will have to redistrict. But in 2021, we created new boundaries for the commissioners, the fire, and the school board districts. We publicly presented and approved those new maps and districts to the BOCC in early 2022. If you remember, it was COVID during 2020 census, so we got those results really late. So it was delayed. And then during the redistricting, the new district lines split across and through the old precincts that were in effect, causing precinct splits and confusion. So example would be, one voter in a precinct could be in Commissioner District 2, and their neighbor who resides in the same precinct could be in Commissioner District 5 currently. And we have a lot of that goes on. So in order to just clean up the precincts, and to also, hopefully, the goal of this is to create an understanding by the voter of why they are in the precinct that they're in, and I will explain that in a minute, but it also is internally, we are going from 41 precincts down to 33 precincts, which means my staff has to create less ballots each election cycle, which means less room for error on each ballot. So internally, administratively, this is a huge help for us. So the precinct changes needed to align precinct boundaries with district boundaries, improve voter understanding of district assignments, and streamline ballot creation and reduced administrative complexity. I apologize, I'm struggling with a little bit of a head cold. So current complexity is there's 41 existing precincts in Douglas County, which means there's 123 precinct splits due to the redistricting, the GIDs. During a primary election, when we have a Republican ballot, a Democrat ballot, and a nonpartisan ballot, that means we have internally 369 ballot styles that must be created and reviewed every primary election. That's a lot of administrative work for my office. And honestly, I've said this before, the biggest fear as a clerk that is in charge of running elections is to miss something on a ballot, to print someone's name incorrectly, to accidentally bold a portion of someone's name. It creates an unfair advantage to that person or a disadvantage to that person, and I never want to have that happen. So this is really going to help my staff to hopefully be able to catch all of those errors. I haven't had it happen yet. I'm hoping it never happens, but you have to plan for it. So the new precinct numbering system is, first I'm going to start by giving credit where credit is due. Douglas County is blessed with so many amazing staff members. And in conjunction with, I was at a loss when it came to the GIS mapping system. And so I reached out to GIS, and I apologize, what does GIS stand for? It's thank you, Geographical Information Systems, our mapping people. I reached out to them because I was at a loss as to how to drag and move everything within the amazing technology that we have, and they really took a lot of ownership of this, and Matt in our GIS department actually came up with this numbering system that I am thrilled with. So the numbering system is going to go from, before it was precinct 1 through 41, so 1, 2, 3, 4, numerically. It's going to go to a 3-digit numbering system. The first digit is going to be the commissioner district you live in. The second digit is going to be the school board district that you live in, and the third digit is going to be the fire district. So, for example, if you are in precinct 252, you would be in Commissioner District 2, School Board District 5, and East Fork Fire District 2. The only caveat that I know we're going to get a lot of phone calls on is East Fork Fire District is in the East Fork Township and has board members 1 through 5, or districts 1 through 5. However, Tahoe Douglas District, Fire District, is only one district. So Tahoe Douglas Fire District is 0. So when you see the precinct number that ends in 0, that means that they're in the Tahoe Township and they're represented by Tahoe Douglas. So Wes, there you go when you get asked the question. So that's the only caveat on that. So the benefits of the new precinct plan, obviously clearer district information for the voters, more efficient ballot creation. It reduces our precincts from 41 to 33, which also reduces the amount of ballots that we administratively have to create. Significant reduction in precinct splits. And then here is the map, which is very tiny, and I apologize. There is a larger version out in the hallway, and it also, if you go to govotedouglas.com, we being GIS, has created a search tool where you can click on the search tool, put in your address, and it will tell you your new precinct number. This information is, we already have these maps put into our voter registration system. We wanted to make sure that we had everything lined up for today's meeting. If you guys have any questions or concerns, I want to go through them, but our plan is to move forward with these maps. They will go into effect tomorrow, and we plan to send a voter notification card to every active registered voter in Douglas County with their new precinct information. We have our vendor working on that right now. We're hoping to have those out by the end of next week. So I think I covered everything. Do you guys have any questions?
Questions, commissioners? I think most of us have already participated in a presentation by Ms. Bergens. Is it Bergens-Brown? No, right? Just recognize that you have recently gotten married, so yeah. Okay, with that, then I hope that the public has been watching this and this presentation, and as they get new voter registration cards in the mail, that'll clarify a lot. And once again, but I think that will instigate a lot of phone calls to your office as well. So I'm sure you're anticipating that. And I know this is something that you've wanted to clean up for a number of years, but being involved in trying to get even just the other 3 processes done of commissioner districts, school board districts, and fire districts, that was a daunting task alone, and then running 2 elections or 3 elections in the meantime. So anyways, we appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. I would also say the voter notification card is also going to have your party on it, and I would encourage everyone to take a really good look at that. Don't just throw it away. Look at it. Make sure the information is correct. If it's not, please go to the Secretary of State's website and update your voter information prior to the primary in June.
Very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Question?
Yes. How many people are in my precinct?
I believe so Tahoe Township is now 1 precinct.
Yes, that's why I'm asking.
You have 4,880, I believe. It is the largest precinct. But I do have all of those numbers broken down on my laptop, which I left right over there. Sorry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And with that, we'll go to item number 13. We'll let Miss 80 get into place here. Okay, and I'll read this into the minutes. Community Services, item 13 for possible action, discussion to adopt ordinance 2025-1659, an ordinance amending various provisions of Title VI of the Douglas County Code pertaining to animals. The ordinance adds new definitions to clarify code language, modifies certain procedures related to dangerous and vicious dogs, updates procedures related to the number of dogs a person may keep, revises requirements for dog breeders, dog fanciers, dog rescues, pet services, pet shops, and kennels, amends appeal procedures, revises procedures related to the impound of animals, clarifies provisions related to animal cruelty, updates the animal services euthanasia policy, and amends provisions related to investigation, citations, and penalties for noncompliance. This is the second reading and is being presented by our Community Services Director, Ms. Brooke Adey. This is for possible action, so we will allow a public comment period before it comes for the board to the board for action. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gardner. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity today to talk to you about our Title VI updates. In 2022, was the last time we did an update to Title VI, and we really did a complete overhaul. Now that we've had a couple years to implement a lot of the things that were put into Title VI, that we identified the need for additional updates. And I will go through those right now. So we did some additional definitions and some clarifications of some definitions. New and updated definitions are for bite, cruelty, director, feral cat, and pet services. Some of the changes that we're doing are helping us better align with Title 22 because there is some overlap between Title 6 and Title 20. And then an additional definition for tether. These aim to remove ambiguity within the code and provide clearer guidance for enforcement and ensure consistency across related regulatory sections. So those are the updates to the definitions. We did updates to dangerous and vicious dog procedures. The Title VI prior to 2022 only had a vicious dog declaration, and so we have added an additional one for dangerous dogs, so that there are opportunities for looking at the various acts that are happening with dogs, and some aren't always vicious, but some might be dangerous based on what has been happening with them. So individuals licensed as a dog. Individuals who have a dog licensed in a previous jurisdictions where they have been deemed vicious will now have to let our animal services operation know that their dog has been deemed vicious in another jurisdiction so that we can license them and so that we are aware of them. We have included administrative appeals related to dangerous or vicious dogs determinations that will be submitted to the director rather than to the Board of County Commissioners, really streamlining this process. And the code now clarifies that any dog may be declared vicious, an additional factor for consideration when supporting evidence by the dog's history or demonstrated propensity to attack without provocation. The previous language was pretty ambiguous, and it didn't allow for some of that professional investigation and judgment by our animal care service officer, so the new code does allow for that. There are revisions to governing the number of dogs allowed to provide flexibility for residents while maintaining regulatory safeguards. And so the updated code, residents without a dog breeder, dog fancier, dog rescue, pet service, pet shop, or kennel license have the ability to apply for a variance permitting ownership of up to 4 dogs on their property. Currently, their residents are not allowed to have more than 3 dogs. So we created a variance process to allow up to 4 dogs over 4 months of age. The variance will be granted upon showing of good cause and payment of variance fee, renewable every 5 years. And so this fee is separate from the standard dog licensing fee. Violation of any Title VI provisions may result in a variance revocation. And individuals that are found over the allowable dog limit will receive written notice and must come into compliance within 30 working days. We also did some revisions to the licensing requirements for animal-related facilities. So our Animal Care and Services does license these facilities. So the proposed amendment strengthened standards for dog breeders, dog fanciers, dog rescues, pet services, pet shops, and kennels. So licensed facilities must maintain an effective rodent and parasite control program to reduce infestation and the spread of disease. All licensees and prospective licensees must complete an animal handling training course. So this is a new requirement that came out of the last legislative session where licensees for these types of facilities are required to have this training. So we updated our code to align with that. And this will be provided at no cost by Animal Services, and it must be completed every 2 years prior to the issuance or renewal of any licenses. And then we updated the acreage requirements for these licenses to align with Title 20. I think in the previous regulation, it was up to 5 acres, and now it's up to 3 acres. We provided some clarification of impoundment procedures. While no substantive procedural changes were made, existing impoundment provisions have been reorganized and consolidated to improve clarity and the usability of the code. We had some clarification on the animal cruelty provisions. Clarifications to cruelty-related provisions were addressed primarily through the addition and refinement of definitions, ensuring that enforcement actions are supported by clear and specific terminology. We did some updates to the euthanasia policy. This revised policy specifies that individuals performing euthanasia must hold a current euthanasia technician license issued by the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners, and really strengthening standards for humane animal care. And then amendments to investigation, citation, and penalty provisions. While existing enforcement provisions were already present in Title VI, they've been reorganized into a new consolidated section to improve readability and support consistent application for penalties for non-compliance. Those are the changes that are taking place in this, and I'm open to any questions you may have at this time.
Commissioners? All I would say, it's not a question. It's just it sounds like an extremely very comprehensive update, and so we appreciate your time that you've invested in this process to the benefit of our county and our pet owners. So with that, if there's no other questions, then we'll go to public comment. Is there any public comment in regards to adopting ordinance 2025-1659? Okay, I see no additional public comment, so we'll bring it back to the board. What's your pleasure?
Brief comment. Really well done changes. I think our animal services are doing a great job. Really appreciate it. I'm ready to make a motion. I move that we approve this ordinance as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hales, seconded by Commissioner Tarkanian to adopt ordinance 2025-1659 as presented. Sensing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Appreciate your brevity. Okay, so we have one more presentation item and then a action item. So with your indulgence, we'll power through this through the lunch hour, right? So, okay, very good. We're going into community development now, item 14 for presentation only. Introduction, so this will not allow for public comment. Presentation only. Introduction of ordinance 2025-1661, a zoning text amendment amending Douglas County Code Title 20 by revising chapters 20.658, 20.662, 20.664, 20.666, and 20.668 in order to implement the requirements of Assembly Bill 241 passed by the Nevada State Legislature during the 2025 legislative session by allowing mixed-use residential development in commercial zones. The applicant is ourselves and presented by Ms. Kate O'Neill, Morales O'Neill. I'm going to do that, okay? Planning Department.
Thank you, Chairman Gardner. For the record,
Kate Marolis O'Neill, Planning Department. It's funny because I did change it to Kate O'Neill because I caught myself mispronouncing my own name because I've heard so many variations that I was calling a hotel and I actually said Morales and I was mortified with myself. So anyway, yes, good morning, or I'm sorry, good afternoon to all of you and everyone in attendance today. Not yet. Okay, good morning / afternoon. So yes, this is the first reading, so pursuant to NRS 244.100, the ordinance, the requirement is that the ordinance be read by title by the Board of County Commissioner, which has been completed. I will be back on February 19th for the second reading for a presentation and discussion, but if you do happen to have any questions for me today, I'm happy to answer them.
There's, we've been asked about this as it's coming down. They knew it would be. So I think the one thing we'd like to get out there is that this would still be subject to the growth management ordinance, correct? That way, I think that would head off a lot of phone calls before the next one.
Correct.
Maybe the only other thing to get out there is this is required by state law now.
It is. Assembly Bill 241 was passed in May of 2025. And all jurisdictions must abide and allow multifamily development in commercial zoning.
And I think we're all perplexed at how legislators from Clark County think they know what's best here. Nonetheless, we are obliged and will uphold the law.
Just out of curiosity, did you change your hair?
That is hysterical. Yes, Commissioner Rice, I'm letting it grow actually. So I've always had it short. I thought that I'd try something different. I just turned 60 in December. So I thought I'm going to allow my hair to grow, and I think it's covering some of the gray. So it's working so far.
So far,
Thank you for noticing.
It's becoming.
You're still really sharp.
So Assistant District Attorney, are we going outside the agenda now?
I don't think hairstyles is on the agenda today. Yes, you're right. Better not be.
Looking
'cause
good, though. Looking really good.
Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Kate Marolis O'Neill. So, okay, we're going to go into item 15, finance for possible action. So this will allow for public comment, discussion to approve the fiscal year 26-27 budget objectives, directives, and calendar by our Chief Operating Officer, Ms. Kathy Lewis.
Thank you. Kathy Lewis for the record. We are at that time of year again. I get very excited at a fiscal year end, but I love budget just as much. So we're going into budget, even though it is always difficult. We have limited resources with a lot of work we want to get done, but I enjoy doing budget. So this is the kickoff. Tomorrow we will meet with department elected officials and directors and their staff to, I'm sure most of them are listening, but also to talk about what we talk about today, and then they get to start building their budgets. But we like to start with looking at the past and what we're doing this year, and then we'll go into how we propose with budget directives to build the budget for next year. The past, I do want to make a mention in the background of this item. I said the past was fiscal year 23-24, but the past is actually fiscal year 24-25. So we will talk about fiscal year 24-25, which the audit was accepted by you guys in December with no audit findings once again. Yay. So looking at the budget, these slides are actually in the management discussion and analysis of the audit report. The audit report is a public document, and it is on the finance website if anybody would like to read the management discussion and analysis. This is the government funds, so not the enterprise funds, and it shows the activity. As we talked about, over half our revenue comes from taxes, whether it's property taxes, room taxes, sales taxes. Over half of them come from sales taxes. I think the interesting thing, don't know if this will show. Yeah. The interesting thing is that only 13% of our revenue come from charges for services. So that means most of our services provided to residents, or most of our activities, are supported by those taxes that we collect. The other slide is looking at the operating revenue expenses versus program revenues by function. As you would expect, the biggest expenditure we talk about quite a bit is public safety. Though the public safety officers are not a revenue generating function in this community or in any community. And so it shows the expenditures compared to the revenues, the program revenues that we receive. And these are audited numbers, so actual numbers from last year. And then similar to what you would expect in the enterprise funds, which is our water, sewer, trash fund, airport fund, those funds we expect to be supported by charges for services. So just the opposite. We expect if we have an enterprise fund that whoever's in that water district will support the water fund in that district and not be supported by taxes or fees. So this is what we would expect for that. Looking at, this is similar to the first slide, looking at the government activities. Again, over half our revenue come from taxes. It shows the general fund, and then also the total all other funds. Looking also at the government funds at the expenditures piece of it, the general fund versus the county funds. I will say, if you were listening to our county manager's presentation yesterday at the chamber, in her presentation, she had public safety at 30-something% of the total general fund. What she was presenting on was how we built the budget, which includes a contingency that we don't spend, which includes transfers out this year of our first payment for the Justice Center. These are actual expenditures. So actual expenditures last year in the general fund, 47% of them were in public safety. So a little bit different in percentages if you're watching, which I'm sure my boss would ask me afterwards because she watches the numbers like that. And I also wanted to look at the ending fund balance, how we end the year with. So we end the year with, in governmental funds, we had $151 million that we ended the year with ending fund reserves and ending fund balances. Of that $151 million, 16 was considered unassigned. These categories are set by GASB and they're audited by our auditors. So there are very specific instructions on how we can classify the ending fund balance based on those 5 different categories. Of course, the least restrictive is at unassigned, and it is in our general fund, that $16.4 million. I wanted to look at that closer so you knew what that $16.4 million makes up of.
When you say unassigned, that's what you mean by it's not in any of the restricted plans. It's our general budget.
It doesn't fit into those categories, but let me show you what that unassigned is made up of. So we ended the year, this is the general fund, here's our $16 million. Of that unassigned, when you guys as a board adopted the budget last May, we adopted the budget to begin the year with $12 million. So we keep that reserve amount. We want to keep 2 months. That's our goal. So we say of that $16 million, when we created this year's budget, we wanted to start the year with $12 million. So that's out of that unassigned piece of it. In addition to that, we had $2.8 million that we brought forward that were projects or contracts or purchase orders that didn't finish June 30th that we brought forward. It was a budget augment that was approved in December. So once we take care of those 2 numbers, really the unallocated piece of that unassigned is $1.5 million. And trying to look at it closer, looking at that $1.5 million, half of it was from revenue that we collected over budget. So we collected $784,000 more in revenue, total revenue, than we had budgeted. That's 1% of our budget. And I always struggle because $1.5 million is a lot of money. 1% of our budget's not very much. We were right on budget. And if you look at expenditures, a little less than 1% we didn't spend that we had budgeted. So we were right within our budget last year when we finished the year. So that $1.5 million is unallocated. We will be coming to the board at a later date to allocate those funds or to talk about how to spend those funds.
You must never retire, ever.
I know that is great news. I would like it to be a little higher to be a little more comfortable, but it was good. It was good news. We finished right on budget, but yes.
That was going to be my question. Is I think we talked about that before. Is that where, again, novice-ish question, where would you prefer it come out? Is there a magic, range that you would like to be, to make you sleep better at night?
That is a great question. I tease that I would like it a larger percentage, but I also feel if we collect taxes from our residents, we should be using it and it shouldn't be going into a savings account. So this is good news. The good thing that we've done in Douglas County is we have created and funded some other accounts that would help us if something happened that we would have to spend more or if our revenue didn't show. So we have a stabilization fund and we have an extraordinary maintenance fund. And those are two funds that are governed by state law of how we can spend them and how we can use them, but they will protect us that if this would go negative, we could dip into those funds. So I like it to be as close as possible because that means we're maximizing everything we have to the greatest extent possible, but and we have a protection.
Yeah, see, that's what I was going to say. It's always nice to have more flexibility, but we are so short on road maintenance and stormwater and so many things, and just have money sitting in the account, which is really needed to be used, is important. And I don't know if this is a time for you to answer it, or maybe you can in our budget talks, but how much did we have last year? What did we end up allocating that for?
I would have to go back and look. I believe it was just under $3 million that we had unallocated last year.
Again, could you just let us know what that $3 million ended up going towards at the end?
I would also say there's many counties that aren't experiencing this. They're in the red numbers. Okay, I always prefer, and we've talked about this over the years. I would prefer to overestimate our costs and underestimate our revenues rather than the opposite, which could put you in a real hole. Okay, if those revenues don't come in. So. But you've already spent the money or allocated the money, so that's a concern, and I appreciate this. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I can jump in here, Jennifer Davidson, County Manager, for the record. A couple of comments. So, $1.5 million feels like a lot of money, and for this organization, it is a lot of money. But I'm going to use a couple of analogies here. Just for context. So when I first became responsible for a budget, I was working out as an administrator in China Spring Youth Camp. The total operating budget of China Spring Youth Camp was $6 million. I was working with Director Thaler at the time. He said to me, guard the budget with your life. I took him seriously. We cut that budget within $6,000 by the end of that fiscal year. That is what we have done here. We have taken a $6 million budget and spent up to everything but $6,000. That is proportionally the same thing. In a household budget, when you look at what the average person is bringing home, we have cut the budget within $6 of the household budget. That is crazy accurate, and it does speak to Ms. Lewis's skills. This is not money just sitting in the bank. I will tell you what this took is real management of this budget, consistent conversations with our department heads and elected officials, and real teamwork by leadership to ensure, one, we weren't overspending, that we were continuously tracking revenues to make sure that we knew what was coming in real time, and we were having real conversations with team members about where they can cut, where they can save. Because you got to bet that we were watching this very closely and we were concerned. You have to proactively manage your budget, and this is about as close as we are comfortable with cutting it. And I am very pleased with the work of the leadership of this organization to find efficiencies where we can and to cut corners where we can. But I will tell you, this is tight. In going into our next budget conversations for the future fiscal year, this is going to be a tough conversation. For other organizations, they have had to go to layoffs. We haven't had to go there yet. I'm not saying that we are going to, but I want you to keep that in mind, what I just said about how close we cut this. There's not room in next fiscal year's budget.
Thank you for that. So that is how we ended last year. Now we want to look at talking about managing our budget. We want to look at where we're at this year for the fiscal year we're in now. The first thing we want to look at to present is property taxes. Property taxes is just under 50% of our general fund budget. I always find it interesting, and I feel like if I say it enough years, everybody else will think it's interesting too. But property taxes, to me, the interesting thing when I was the elected clerk treasurer is that this community pays 40% of the taxes that are assessed on the first installment. In the August installment, we see 40% of our property tax revenue. By the end of the third installment, which is just ended in January, we'll see over 97% of the revenue that has been, 90% of the taxes that have been billed, which is great because if you look at sales tax and gas taxes, we don't see that until the end of the fiscal year, and we're always watching that closer. Property taxes, we know how we're doing pretty early on. So property taxes, we're right on budget. We're trending right on target of what we had budgeted. And this was at the end of December, so you don't see this being at the 97%. That installment just ended because it started January 5th for that. The next one is state consolidated taxes, which is about 25% of our general fund budget. Again, it's made up of those 6 taxes, the 2 biggest being sales tax. For this budget, we think that we're trending cautiously on target. That one is about 2 months in the rear, so we've only received the taxes from the state through October. If you can see, we're a third of the way through the year, but we have collected more than a third of the budget. But it's also sales tax, and so we are watching that. We haven't seen what the holidays have done of how that's been doing. In addition to that, the state upgraded their system last year, and we're learning the trends that we would expect to see with their distribution with their new system. So we are cautiously thinking we're on target for state consolidated taxes. The occupancy room tax, and so this is not a general fund tax, but it is the taxes that support our second biggest fund, which is the room tax fund, community services. This slide is net of promotional payments. If you looked at our audit, you would see that we did over budget or think that we would receive more in room taxes than we actually received last year. This year, we think that budget might still be a little bit high. We've been working with Director Brooke Adey on it, on this year's expenditures and watching it. But we think it's trending about where it was last year. And we're watching those numbers too. That is another one we're about 2 months behind before we actually see how the room tax is doing.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just jump in here, there's a Jennifer Davidson, County Manager for the record. For those who may be watching this presentation and hearing this for the first time, there's a couple of factors impacting room tax leveling off and or declining. Specifically at the lake, there are a number of property renovations going on, which have impacted the availability of rooms. But additionally, we have seen a decline in vacation home rental permits. At their peak, I think the highest number we had was just over 590 vacation home rental permits. Now we're closer to around 530. We are continuing to see those decline, and it's a number we're watching. I do expect that it's probably going to level off somewhere around 500, but that's definitely having an impact on our room tax revenue overall.
The last revenue to look at is gasoline tax. Again, not a general fund tax, but as Commissioner Tarkanian mentioned, it does support the roads, and so we want to watch it. It has been pretty level the past couple years, and we're trending on target with where our collections. It's another revenue that's 2 months in the rear that by the time we receive it, but it's cautiously on target. Unfortunately, not a growing revenue. But it's cautiously on target of what we're expecting for that.
This is a growing trend across the United States, not just singular to Douglas County, with the average miles per gallon requirement by the federal government for new cars, and also the increased use of electric vehicles without revenues coming in is concerning every county in the United States. I can attest to that. So it's not just us. Yeah.
Thank you for that. As a reminder, when we built the 24-25 budget, we eliminated or we held 7 positions vacant. We also did a lot of work with our departments and elected officials of scrubbing that budget, looking to make sure that our contracts were contracts we were using and that they were accurately recorded, removed one-time expenditures. We strongly feel that that work that we did 2 years ago has set us up in a position that we have a tight budget just like everybody else in the region, but as our county manager has mentioned, layoffs have not been in the discussion where they have been with our counterparts. And so we feel like this has helped us and set us up for where we're at now, and we'll continue to scrubbing those budgets and working with our departments and elected officials to more efficiently deliver services and see where we can reduce expenditures. This is the general fund. I will say we're trending right on target. We're halfway through the year. I ran this as of December 31st, collected 52% of our revenues overall, and we've spent about 45% of our budget. So about as on target as you can get for this point in the year. We're watching it. That is where we're at now. So now we'd like to talk about going into the budget building process and what we're seeking direction from the board. I always struggle when I have to show a 5-year forecast, and it was recently mentioned to me, probably a good analogy is a 5-year forecast is like the 10-day weather forecast, right? We have to plan for it. You have to look at what that 10-day is, but a lot can happen in between. So what I hate is that this 5-year, when you guys are all commissioners in 2031 and 2032, will look different than what I'm showing you now because things change. But we have to look forward. We have to be able to plan and know what our trends are doing for that. So 26, 27 projected.
We'll also let you know that the board up here will look a lot different in that time during that time also. So just an observation.
So as we talked about, assumptions will change. This really is the first look at our 5-year forecast. What we will do after this meeting is we'll start working in detail with our departments and elected officials for revenue projections. We will get state projections of what they're thinking. They haven't released those. They'll release those in February and March. We'll start nailing down our expenditures and looking at services and supplies in detail and running those information in detail. So this is really a preliminary look at and gives us an idea of how we need to build how we're recommending for you guys to build those budget directives. In the general fund, I'm looking at when we look at the revenues, property taxes is 50% of our budget, and for property tax projection going forward, when we bring numbers to you in March at the beginning, we'll have another 5-year forecast that will be a little more accurate, a little more detailed. We'll work with, for property taxes, we'll work with building department, with community development, and our assessor to look at what we're seeing for property taxes. The biggest question there is new construction. Existing property taxes are capped, as we know, so that's an easier number to project, but then we'll look at what we expect to add to the roll in July. State consolidated taxes, waiting on the state. I'm curious to keep watching our state consolidated taxes to see how we're collecting right now, going forward, and what we can do for that. And then those are our 2 biggest revenues. Salaries and wages and employee benefits, preliminary numbers, we have built it based on what our contracts are and what we expect to see there. We know when we go forward that we built in, last year we had a pretty big increase in our PERS rate, and so that is our second year of that PERS rate. We'll find out this fall what the state is thinking for the PERS rate for the next 2 years for that. We also built in the projection, just so you know, going forward in those 5 years, is we wanted to look at, we're expecting next year to bring on the Justice Center. So we have Justice Center operating costs. We expect operating costs to increase. And we expect
another PERS increase every 2 years for here. So looking at it, especially looking at the 26-27, right now, without any input from departments and elected officials or review of their budget, we are about $1 million less in revenue than expenditures. We'll take this number, and now we have a lot of hard work to do before we come back to you for the budget hearings in March to present what we have in March. I like these numbers down here, and to me, this is what we want to look at. Our goal is always to have 2 months of reserves. 2 months of reserves is about 16.67%. 2 months gives us that little bit of buffer to make changes if we're seeing changes in the economy. So this right now is 1.66, and then you can see what the projected is. This will not be, whoever is sitting in whatever position, this will not be how the budget would be adopted in 5 years. We would not have that low of reserve.
Well, I'm glad to know that you'll be around for 31, 32.
So from here is what we wanted to look at, what our challenges, we think our challenges are for the 26-27 budget, is we're building this budget in an environment of economic uncertainty and I love that word, but I can't say it, variability. We want to provide programs and services at levels that can be sustained with our revenues. And that's the most important thing, I think, when we talk to departments and elected officials is what can we provide with the revenues that we have with taxes and stuff coming into us. Continue to work on that PERS contribution rate. The biggest one, of course, was the police fire rate that went from 50% to 58.75%. Really, we built it in this year's budget, and then we'll make sure that we built it correctly, and we're ready to build it in for next year's budget to that increase. We anticipate that we'll see health insurance increases in January of this year. We saw it in this past January. The year before we didn't see as much, but we need to budget and plan for that. We know that operating costs are increasing. We know to provide the same level of service we have right now that the operating costs are increasing. And we need to continue to balance our operating needs with our capital needs. We need to continue to balance it based on what we have to implement the strategic plan. We have the Justice Center operating costs coming on next year. We need to look at remodeling the JLEC building whenever that happens. We need to increase our investment in road maintenance and infrastructure, plan for increased investment in stormwater infrastructure. We're working on upgrading and replacing our public safety radio system. And we want to create that facilities plan and needs analysis for the whole county. So we have a plan for that. And we want to keep compensation competitive with our region. So the proposed budget objectives is that we will present a structurally balanced budget. We'll prepare and plan for those priority projects that we talked about, and then work on compensation to always keep that in the back of our mind too, the compensation. The specific directives going through there is that we're asking the commission to approve is the directives is that for the general fund and any special revenue funds shall be balanced with operating expenditures equal to or less than projected operating revenues. And the enterprise and internal service funds shall reflect the full cost of providing those services, and they're supported within their fund. Revenues, we will budget revenues conservatively based on recent trends, information provided by the state, departments, and other economic data. Personnel costs, we are recommending no new personnel being added to the budget for next year. The departments and elected officials can certainly talk when they come forward, but we want to do the directive that no new personnel will be added to the budget for next year, and that personnel budgets are prepared in compliance with what our labor contracts and our policies say. Service and supplies are operating costs. I do want to say that these budget directives were in the board backup, but obviously I get my years must be confused. And so I think I said 24-25 in the directives, and I'd like to change that to 25-26. We are asking departments not to increase their service and supplies budget more than the current year, this year we're in now, adopted budget. And we're saying in total. So for example, community development has many different departments. Over all their departments, we're asking that number not to increase. if when the director, when Tom is preparing the budget, if he wants to increase another line item, we're asking him to look for other line items that he can decrease to fund that. If there needs to be an increase, you will see it as a request to increase it in total for that when it comes to the board. Any new programs or one-time expenditures will be submitted on a supplemental new program budget request form. And we continue to ask departments to really scrub their budget. If there's line items that they just haven't spent that they can reduce, we're asking them to reduce. And we've also had discussions with the courts, and if you've read the paper, the courts, there's a lot of different trials happening in our community, a lot of murder trials happening in our community. What we've talked with the courts too is those type of expenditures are really good use of our contingency funds. It doesn't make sense to build up a budget for something that might happen every 5 years. But if they have something that happens every 5 years, like many cases or many murder trials, then we can come to the board and ask to use our contingency funds for that to get them through that year. So we're asking departments to look at their budget that way. Capital outlay, any capital outlay or project will come to the board as a supplemental capital budget request. And then looking at our calendar, today we're doing the budget kickoff. We have scheduled March 23rd, 24th, 30th, and 31st is our special board meetings for the hearings of all the departmental presentations. I'll start off the kickoff along with our county manager of talking about our revenues in detail, how they're prepared. We'll look at sales taxes and property taxes and stuff like that. And then May 7th at the board meeting, we'll do a budget update and a presentation of the CIP, and another special meeting on May 28th to hopefully adopt the budget. The different things in there is we have to submit to the state by April 15th a tentative budget, and then we have to submit to the state an adopted budget by June 1st. Oh, I guess right there. I lost my last page. It was just if you have any questions.
Commissioners, questions? I think we've all gotten meeting requests for those dates, so we've hopefully locked those all in to our existing calendars. So are you looking for what?
I am to approve the direct dates.
Okay. Anyways, this is for possible action. So if there's no questions by the commissioners, we'll go to the public. Okay. So at this time, we'll open public comment for item number 15.
Jason Gibson, Tall Guy Audits. What you just heard here confirms our knowledge and our suspicion that 47% of the budget goes toward so-called public safety for a retirement community of 53,000 people. And that the JLEC remodel and the Justice Center comes before infrastructure. It comes before flood mitigation. It comes first. That JLEC institution is going to get 60 to 75% of all the revenues in this county by the time they build their $70 million cash cow. They say that public safety is not a revenue-generating source of income. The hell it is. Their cash cow is DUIs.
Please be careful with your language. Thank you.
Their cash cow is the DUI. And rather than run those DART buses like we've asked them to on the weekends to reduce the DUIs and to run those DART buses during special events like CVI days, they would rather wait for you to leave the festival and bust you down the road. Spend a fortune on that DART transit, but they won't run it to reduce the DUIs because it's their number one cash cow. Those so-called peace officers fabricate the charges against you. If you try to call for service, they'll flip the narrative. They'll try to make you to be you to be the criminal, and it's not just me. You can't call law enforcement and get equal protection under the law. And there's a number of people coming forward to expose that one. They claim that it takes 1 year to try cases in their JLEC courts. That's not true. That was a testimony in March that we heard. They push that out to 2 years plus. They hire half a dozen attorneys to ambush you, misrepresent you, mischaracterize you. They all get paid to do it. And every time that you're summoned to appear in that court, another bond issues. They got a whole back office of securities and bonds and monies that they're making. Every misdemeanor, $50,000. Every felony charge, $250,000. You're not even seeing what they're banking on the back end. Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves.
Is there additional public comment?
I think the shame is misdirected on that last comment. The only thing that I think,
Mr. Jackson, can you state your name for the record?
is pretty good. I remember when I used to do budget projects when I worked at Disney, they were a nightmare to do. Except we didn't have the problem of we could spend money like it was non-existent. They didn't have budgets. We spent until we got what they wanted, and that was it. So that made it a little bit easier. My only comment to this whole process is you have always had certain aspects of money coming in, tax revenues of some sort or another, that were restricted on what you could use them for. My request, and I think a lot of people in the county would go along with this, is that if it is the state that is mandating, such as the room tax, that you have to spend it on something like entertainment or whatever, that you go back to the state and ask for a variance. Say, we don't need any more parks, we don't need any more entertainment venues, but we do need roads fixed and we do need floodwater fixed. I think that would be something that the county could do. And you might be surprised the state might give you that variance. And then we could get some of the things fixed that the budget's not going to have the money to do. I mean, if we're based off the same money as last year, there was no money in last year to fix roads, and there won't be any money again this year to fix roads. And some of the roads need to be fixed. Have any of you driven down East Valley lately? After about 2 or 3 months, you got to get your springs replaced, your shocks replaced, and your teeth replaced from rattling down that road. But I think that that's one of the things you could do is go back to the state and say, we don't need to spend this money on that at this point. Maybe somewhere down the line we could, but let's get a variance and spend some of those dollars on the roads or everything else. The other thing I know a lot of people are going to be watching for in this budget, you're not going to like it, but they don't want to spend any money on the theater. And if we see that as a line item somewhere in there, we're going to come back at you and said, you promised not to spend any county money on that. You are the landlord. You're going to get stuck with fixing the parking lots and all that kind of stuff because you own that land now. But as far as the theater itself, that's a private enterprise. Let them pay for all of it. Don't funnel it through the county like we did on this last one where you hired the architects. You made the contract with the architects, not the art council. That tells me somewhere's down the line, they're going to stick you with a bill. I can see it coming right now. So that's my few words. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment on this item? Since no further public comment on this item, I'll bring it back to the board. Commissioners?
I move that we approve the fiscal year 2026-27 budget objectives, directives, and calendar as presented.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Tolbert to approve the fiscal year 26-27 budget objectives, directives, and calendar as presented. Any discussion on that? Since no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. I would like to say we're looking forward to this, but I don't know that we are. We, once again, precious pennies, but we're certainly in, as I can attest, that we're in a better position than a lot of other entities, both local and statewide. So anyways, thank you for your diligence in this. We'll go now to item number 16. This is for presentation only. Announcements, reports, updates from county commission members, including updates on the various boards and or commissions that they may be a member of or a liaison to, or any other meetings, functions they have attended, and any requests by a commissioner for discussion of a future agenda item. Commissioner Hales.
Yes, thank you. A few things. I note that on page 286, a couple of the things I'm assigned to are not listed. So just a note. Carson Water Subconservancy District has hired Reed Cousins as the new executive director, and it's Reed Cousins, an excellent choice, and we had very good applicants, and there will be a retirement party for Ed James, February 12th from 4 to 8 at Nashville Social Club. He's done a great job, so anybody who's interacted with him might want to note that. The interesting thing we learned last night is that the snowpack is dwindling. A lot of places regionally have had something of a wet winter, but it's been so warm that the snowpack hasn't built up. And what that means is it's all running down and not going to be around when we need it. So even though there's some water, it's we could be going into a drought later in the year. Carson Valley Arts Center, there will be a stakeholder meeting upcoming at the Carson Valley Cinemas. The architect, there's wide approval for the architect, so we did good work in choosing him. The broad we all, yeah. And the intent was with the Carson Valley Arts Council as a nonprofit partner that profits from the operation of the cinema would go towards the renovation and creation of the Performing Arts Center. And so I will report that for the first 6 months under that arrangement, $25,000 is the profit that will go back into the theater. That's about on track with what Carson Valley Arts Council expected, but we think it could and should be more, and there will be an effort to educate the public better, working, we hope, with the towns and GADs and others, just to inform the public that you buy a ticket, you build the arts. So we want people to view movies locally and support that. The last thing I'll note is the Business Council meeting yesterday. There was a report from the Sheriff's Advisory Council, and the head of that group is Rudy McTee right now. Their annual fundraiser, which is always really great fun, is March 21st. So that's a report of some of my work.
Thank you. And I would note, commissioners, your list is on at the end of the agenda of your assignments. If you are finding any inaccuracies there, please get together with our administrative assistant, Rachel, to adjust that. So, thank you. Commissioner Tarkanian, do you have anything to report? Commissioner Rice?
Since our last meeting, I attended the Lake Tahoe Visitor Authority meeting, the Tahoe Douglas Visitor Authority. Both of those organizations have had their yearly audit done, and there were no audit corrections, and that everything was favorable. I also attended the Sewer Authority meeting, and our longtime office manager retired, and she is no longer with us. Paula was a source of institutional knowledge that went back from when the casino, just about from when the casinos were built, and they built their sewer system way back when. And she will be missed. I also attended the South Shore Traffic Management Association meeting, and you weren't there. I'm your alternate. I was there, and there's not a lot to report from that. And I also attended the Stormwater Management Association, and they're having all of the properties at the lake go through and clean out all of their stormwater processing systems to make sure that everything is in compliance with the requirements from TRPA. And that's what I have.
Thank you. And Commissioner Tolbert.
No, not much to report. Did have our Western Nevada Development District meeting. There's a lot of activities all over Northern Nevada that are projects that are being supported and grants being written. The next meeting, I believe we're quarterly. I don't have that right in front of me. Also, locally, the Cultural Arts Foundation and Partnership Douglas County are beginning collaborations on some drug and alcohol prevention, with providing potential concerts monthly or bi-monthly that are targeted specifically to the youth, that will be promoting alcohol-free and drug-free entertainment, because we've grown up here, there's nothing to do, right? So we're trying to provide some things to do here locally for the kids that are safe and don't include elements that we don't want them to partake or they shouldn't partake in.
Thank you. So on my list, I did attend the Chamber of Commerce previous Wednesday. Annually, the National Association of Counties does a new president's fly-in of the different associations throughout the country. And so I took the opportunity to visit, do that, since I'm the new president of the Nevada Association of Counties. So I did put my, the meeting didn't start until 2 o'clock on Wednesday, so I put my time in the morning to good use on behalf of the county, and met with our congressional delegation, certainly trying to promote the lands bill passage. So hopefully we can move that along here in this next session of Congress. Other than that, and so in that process, I wasn't able to attend the Carson Valley Visitors Authority meeting on Friday morning, and I appreciate Commissioner Hales filling in for me in that regard. Yesterday morning, I presented on behalf of the county at the Douglas County Business Council, and that's an item that we need to add to Ms. Hales' list of items, assignments, because she's now also our eyes and ears on that board. And so we thank you for that. So we'll add that. And Commissioner Hales took a few minutes to talk about the exhausting 2025 that we just got through. With that, we do have a couple of important dates coming up. Next Thursday is the Northern Nevada Development Agency State of the County's Message. Our county manager will be participating in that next Thursday morning at Casino Fandango on behalf of our county. There will be 4 other counties that will be participating in that, and I believe there are still tickets available should the members of the public want to attend that. It's a eye-opening experience, and you'll see how the other counties in our surrounding area, Carson, Story, Lyon, and Mineral County, are progressing through their processes and looking to their budgets for the next year. So with that, that's all I have to respond to. And so anyways, with that, we'll go into closing public comment.
Jason Gibson, living man on the land and soil, native son of the Republic of California, domicile in Nevada since 1980, 81. Today, they just rolled into the budget. Number of items funding the criminal enterprise of the Indigent Defense Services of Douglas County. They've all received the bar complaints, which show that Justin Klauser, who they bankrolled at $132,000 today, and another $60,000, almost $180,000, knowingly maladministrated the defense services of constituent citizens, exposed by Charla Hells for billing this county and the state $1,700 an hour. Justin Klauser on the record admitting a nationwide crisis in bar representation, showing incompetent, ineffective assistance of counsel. The governor issuing a proclamation last year to assure us of our constitutional rights isn't fulfilling his fiduciary responsibility because they won't listen. They won't give us our right to competent counsel or the right to defend ourselves and represent in propria persona. They know these things. Perpetual ambush techniques. Collusion between the district attorney, Douglas Ritchie, and his business partner, Mark Jackson, their special prosecutor, Chelsea Amaza, Sandra Moore, the district court. They call it a justice center. They justify all this as a justice enterprise. It ain't no justice enterprise. They're taking you to the cleaners, strapping you down to unprecedented debt and a total police state, cameras on all your stoplights, a culture of fear, two to three cop cars on most every traffic stop, officers shooting each other in our neighborhood, 5 officers drilling 50 rounds into a kid with a pellet gun, shooting his own partner. They know it and they're funding it. Over here, we're going to put this on the record. Douglas Ritchie's going to return it, or it's going to be theft of property again. We also want to show that this agreement that they funded between the Human Health Services and the American Rescue Plan Act and Carson City Health is a scam to profile you with mental health disorders so that they can fund all of these counselors and fund all these programs so that they can jack you with medications.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Is there any additional public comment?
Jim Jackson. I always hate following that. Last week, Douglas County made national news. My wife was watching the news in the morning, and all of a sudden the national news came on ABC, and it said Douglas County, and it was referring to the school board and the problems that they're having. And she said, do I know anything about that? And I said, nope, I stay away from that organization as far as I can. So last weekend, she goes out and gets the newspaper and brings it in. She said, what did you do? Headline, Jackson returns to school board seat. Second headline underneath it, district declares financial emergency. I said, it's not me. I have nothing to do with that. I am not related to that, Jackson. There's a lot of us out there, but that is not me, and I'm not related to it. I just wanted to clear that up with you folks in case you saw that and you figured I'm trying to moonlight or something. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much for the bit of levity.
James McCullough for the record, and that was an important disclosure. I really want to congratulate the work that Amy Bergens has done. Your precinct number is actually going to mean something. It's going to give you information. And I think that that's an important step. In my role with the Rural Caucus, Republican Rural Caucus, I talked to a lot of other counties, and they're waiting. They're waiting to see how it works. They're looking to do something similar. So I think Douglas County may just be leading the way for a lot of changes throughout the state. She deserves to be congratulated for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Seeing no additional public comment, I appreciate the indulgence of the audience and the board in working through this lunch hour. That doesn't mean that we won't be going to lunch. It's just that we didn't break it for lunch. So thank you very much. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.